We do roll on here on this edition of Three Dog Thursday. The Roundtable is back. I'm looking forward to talking with my guests about college football, the NFL, the NBA, and much more. Quick reminder, if you have not already, find the YouTube page, find the video, because it's a video roundtable. You'll see the mugs of my guests and whatever it is that I look like. Check it out via the Three Dog Thursday YouTube page. Again, if you're just subscribing and hearing the audio only. With that out of the way, let's say hello to our panelists. Chris Plank, have been around him, Fox Sports Radio alumni, brother from another mother, sideline brother from another mother on the Oklahoma Sooners football broadcast, does a lot of broadcasting work with OU. Brother Plank, good to have you here on the Roundtable. Thank you for accepting the invite.
Thanks, Mr. Saturday Night. Appreciate you having me back, TJ.
I was Saturday Night for a while. I don't know if it was Saturday Night Live or Saturday Night Dead or what it was there at Fox Sports Radio. Also smiling here on the Zoom, again, get the video and find him. He's always smiling, is Vince Ferrara, who's on 5 days a week with the Sports Animal, the radio station in Knoxville, Tennessee. Does a lot of different things with their web coverage as well in and around the Tennessee football program. Vince is also a Tampa brother from another mother, displaced in Knoxville. Good to have you, Vince.
TJ, good to see you and be on with Chris. And it's crazy that we were supposed to cross paths with Chris because I do a lot on the Vol Network and Chris with Oklahoma, but unfortunately that marquee game not going to happen this year.
So sad.
I know. Yeah. So many of the games and the stuff that we're trying to do with COVID is jumbled. Hey, let's just begin right there. Chris, let's start with you first. The Big 12 finally made the announcement earlier in the week. They're going to do the conference games, but unlike the SEC and the ACC and the Big Ten, or actually the SEC and the Big Ten and I believe the Pac-12, the Big 12 says we'll do the +1. We'll let you play at least another school outside of the conference-only games. What do you make of this? What's the talk on your show and in and around Oklahoma about Sooner football?
Well, first of all, as I sit here, I got my phone because I'm refreshing constantly because at any moment here, I think we could have this overall new idea, this new conference schedule show up for the Sooners, and obviously in that for the rest of the Big 12. But I'm really surprised, TJ, because, and Vince might be able to speak to this better than anyone, I was of the understanding the whole time that Oklahoma and Tennessee were going to do everything that they could to make this game happen. And when the SEC went conference only and then, kind of steering clear of that shot that to what. So it was a little bit disappointing because as Vince mentioned, we all have kind of looked forward to this and been excited about it. But I can't even begin to tell you how challenging this has been to make sense of, because you think you've got it figured out where you're going to start on August 29th, right? And you're going to get a jump start on things. And then coming to find out, no, that's not going to be the case. So here's what we know, just at least from a Big 12 perspective. They want flexibility in this schedule. So with the 9+1, at least for Oklahoma, depending on what the Big 12 decides, if it's going to be September 19th or the 26th when they start the season, the Sooners will start its season on the 12th if it's the 26th, and the regular start date of the 5th if it's on the 19th. They want a week off after the non-conference game to get testing taken care of and see where they are. So we're still very much in a wait and see. I'm constantly refreshing here for any updates while we're on, but I was a little bit surprised to see him go with the 9+1, to be honest. I thought
it is interesting. We're all hitting the refresh button and trying to figure it out. Yeah, we're all trying to hit that. And so Vince Ferrara, I guess to you, how surprised were you that the SEC kind of reacted? I mean, first in the chronology last week, the ACC said, okay, we're going, we're playing, we've got Notre Dame, and we're going to welcome the +1 game. And the SEC acted like within hours almost and said, nope, it's going to be conference only for us. Did that surprise you?
No, because it started to seem really clear to us, even though nothing is absolute during this pandemic period, as we all know and Chris alluded to, that everyone wanted to do their own thing. So the SEC sort of went full circle. Initially, when you were talking about different scenarios, there was the expectation the SEC would go conference only, maybe a 9-game conference schedule with that 2021 crossover. Then started to see reports that would take you in different directions, that no way the SEC is going to play the same number of conference games as the Big Ten or anyone else when they have such a difficult conference schedule. No way would they do that to hurt their college football playoff hopes. But then as more time went on and you started to see everyone, the Big Ten made their own announcement, Pac-12 followed. then you thought maybe those three big other Power Five conferences would work together, which would make sense to what Chris was talking about, because there are 4 SEC Big 12 matchups set up in non-conference this year, just like there were 4 SEC ACC non-conference games, prominent ones that were set up with in-state rivalries. So why wouldn't those 3 work together to have that same +1 format? But then when the ACC jumped the gun and they made their announcement of a +1, to me, that's where I thought it would go, and it did end up going that direction. And it undermines the ACC, because they did a +1 with the anticipation that they were going to have those 4 rivalry games against those SEC schools, and now they have to change course on top of that. And then when the SEC did their own thing, and here's the Big 12, still hoping, I'm sure, to still have the Tennessee Oklahoma matchups and the others that were there, the LSU Texases and others. When they were left out, then you knew that with the number of teams in their conference, that they would try to find a way to do a +1, but you can't have those marquees unless they get together with the ACC. So all these conferences are more important, just want to do their own thing.
Yeah, very true. And so the interconference, the cross-conference matchups are going to be almost non-existent for this year. It's going to be very weird, because those have been a staple of the first couple of weeks of the season for decades in college football, for sure. Hey, what do you guys make? There is a growing sentiment. We made mention earlier in the podcast with Brian Edwards on the audio version of the podcast. Let me say again, if you're only hearing us through Apple Podcasts, through Spotify, through Google Podcasts, come find the video of these male models that are with me, Chris Plank and Vince Ferrara here. Find the YouTube page, find the social media link with the video of it. So Brian was mentioning on the audio version of the podcast, when we were talking back and forth, the players are kind of getting together right now and discussing opting out. And the Big Ten players, on the day that we're taping here, have come out in a huge number, in a huge group, and said, we want to be heard about the health concerns and about our situation before we go and play. To both of you, Chris, I guess you first, how concerned are we that you may have these plans, but the players themselves could be in the middle of holding it up because they're not paid professionals like the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, et cetera?
Yeah, and it's interesting to me, because whenever I saw the Big Ten thing, I thought it was very logical in what they asked for, and doable things, with what the Pac-12 and their coalition asked for. They're asking for percentages of income, and they want all sports funded, but then they want a cut of every single dollar that's made. What the Big Ten asked for was very logical. But Vince, I thought, maybe almost by mistake, the Big Ten releases this, and then the NCAA comes out with kind of a Lincoln Hawk over the top grip, and they finally have some guidelines. Now, there's not universal testing, but the NCAA has some guidelines, which I think guys might be kind of season saving in that matter, because, you look at the Big Ten stuff and it's about safety. Well, now here you go. The NCAA just basically said, hey, we're putting this back on your schools, and we're giving you the power to call this number if you feel like things are done wrong. And then it doesn't become a report because one guy's upset and goes to a media guide and blows up on Twitter. So, I mean, Vince, I thought, as bad as the NCAA has been in time, they got lucky in their timing in releasing that today, because I thought it answered a lot of the questions the Big Ten had.
Vince, go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers to it, Chris. You're right. And if in terms of the opt-outs, which is, TJ, what you're talking about, that the Big Ten is trying to cover themselves, where some of those players are trying to get more for the safety and the protocol for COVID, and those things are good. The NCAA, and part of what they announced, is that, hey, you have to honor those scholarships for 2020, and you won't lose them if you do decide to opt out. And that's something that the SEC did a few weeks ago, back July 17th. They made that release and said they were going to honor scholarships. They'll keep tabs on it and see if they need to extend it beyond 2021. So that's, I think, a smart move. It obviously opens the door for more kids that aren't feeling safe to make that decision. But guess what? A lot of them are going to make that decision, I think, anyway. So with the story with Colorado State, and as bad as that looks, these schools have to cover themselves. And then you get into the financial part of it. Yeah, the big schools, they can afford to pay out scholarships to players that aren't going to play and are opting out, but not everyone's going to be able to afford to do that. So there's just a lot of complications, but at least the NCAA did what is right from a PR standpoint to say, hey, if you're not safe, don't feel safe in your situation, then you need to do it. And then as far as the testing goes, I think there's going to be wide variance in that too. Not everyone can afford to do the level of testing, even the minimum. I think will be a struggle for some schools. And then the SECs, the Big 12s, those power programs, they can test more frequently. The Big Ten in their release today, they had the medical protocol. They had in there too that you can test more than just the minimum. But I still think that 14-day shutdown, that's where you can automatic shut down. You can't test out of it, test negative out of it. I think that's a real complication for the sport as well moving forward.
Yeah, well, I keep joking. The one thing that we know during all of this is that we don't know. We keep coming back to we think we know, but then it changes. We don't. It's the common denominator on this. That's the voice of Vince Ferrara. Find him on social media at Vince Sports. Vince on 5 days a week in Knoxville, Tennessee on the Sports Animal on the radio station there. He's a fun follow, though, because he talks a lot of other things, including MMA and other stuff. Chris Plank is also with me. Follow him at Plank Show on Twitter and social media associated with the Oklahoma football broadcast. You hear him Sunday nights nationally. God help him with Arnie Spanier every week as Chris and Arnie do Sunday nights nationally on Fox Sports Radio. And again, I remind everybody here that you can find the video version of the podcast here through our YouTube page. So indulge me for 1 second here, guys, because we're also going to talk about one of our sponsors before we continue on the conversation here, and that is our friends at Smack Apparel. And they've got a great deal going on right now at Smack Apparel with all of their baseball merchandise. Still a few days left in the promo that we've got for the start of the baseball season. These are great in-your-face theme shirts at smackapparel.com, including, for example, the Bryceless World Series shirt that we're showing to you. Vince and Chris are seeing this. You guys are hopefully seeing this on the YouTube broadcast. Winning a world championship without Bryce Harper, with him taking the $300 million and going to Philadelphia, it was priceless for the Nationals. Get that shirt. Maybe you're a Yankees fan and you want to see Aaron Judge social distancing some more baseballs like he's been doing recently. There's the social distancing shirt that we're showing you from smackapparel.com. Maybe you're a Dodger fan and you just hate the Astros and you want to say that Houston is a fraud. Our friends at Smack Apparel have the Houston is a fraud shirt that I'm showing you on the YouTube video. Again, check these out at smackapparel.com. Special promo code is MLB2020. Only good for the Major League Baseball products. Again, if you're shopping the other stuff, the NFL that they have, the pro football, the pro basketball, this code is only good for baseball, and it's only good through Sunday, the 9th. So again, check them out. They've even got the Mike Trout flattening the curve here with all that's going on with COVID. He's been flattening the curve for a while. $400 million ball player, much the same way that Plank and Vince Ferrara get paid in radio. So right. Smackapparel.com, and the promo code again is MLB2020. 30% off your order with that promo code MLB2020 through Sunday for the baseball product and all the shirts. Shop all the shirts. Buy as many as you want with 30% off with Smack Apparel. All right, so we come back on board on screen here with Vince and with Chris Plank. So I want to dive into a couple of other things. NFL. Chris, I have been joking with Vince even before we started this. He is a Tampa guy, now in Knoxville, displaced. He has long suffered with the Buccaneers. Yes, a world championship for the Bucs in 2002, but it's been a lot of lean before that and after that. But Vince Ferrara, I'm going to go back to the video here. We actually do have the video in this instance of what we saw before with Tom Brady. It is a reality. Here it is, boys. Tom Brady actually out at Buccaneer practice, having signed with the New England Patriots earlier this week at Buccaneers practices. Their training camp has not begun. There it is, Vince. Tom Brady, for the first time in Buccaneer shirt and shorts, throwing to the receivers this week. It is a reality, Vince. There's Mike Evans catching a pass from Tom Brady in a practice. What do you make of this, Vince?
Yeah, it is hard to believe. Even when they put out all the Brady in the Bucs uniforms, even that was hard to really still understand and comprehend seeing him on the field. that is another step towards the reality of him being on the field. But hey, we got to get the season in, and then I think some people it'll finally sink in when they see him trot out and get that first snap under their belt, because during the process, TJ, it was like even when the news was coming out, it seemed like a foregone conclusion. A lot of people didn't want to jinx it, and they're holding their breath. It's just still hard to feel that this is actually a real thing, but that video helps you with it.
At least for right now. That's all we have to go. Now, Plank is a Raiders guy, and the Raiders are going to go to Vegas. The Bucs are allegedly playing the Raiders in Vegas. If everything holds up with the NFL schedule, there's been some talk they might nix the interconference games. Here we go again, AFC and NFC. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Bucs to play the Raiders in Vegas, but no fans, Chris Plank, for the first year in Vegas. This is just truly weird right now in the NFL. Yeah. I guess in some ways we got to be appreciative of take what you can get right now, right?
Yeah, you're in the mode where you're happy to get a season, right? And I'm a hopeless romantic when it comes to the Raiders. Every year I think this is our season. I thought that when Aaron Brooks was their quarterback, to tell you how hopeless I am. But it's unfortunate because, with the acquisition, the drafting of Henry Ruggs and Brian Edwards, and, they did some things on defense to where they actually have some linebackers. There's reason to hope that they're not going to suck this year. They might actually be more competitive than they've been. You bring in Mariota to back up Carr. But, it's fascinating that, you guys are jazzed about Tom Brady. I thought for a point that I'd be pretty jazzed about Tom Brady because there were the rumors about the Raiders and where he might go. But I say this, and obviously, TJ, you cover the NFC South closer than anybody. As much as I could sit here and talk for hours about the Raiders, I think the NFC South is the most fascinating division in the NFL this year. You look at Brady back with the Bucs. Who knows what Matt Rule is going to be able to do with McCaffrey and Bridgewater right now. Is this the final adios for Drew Brees? And listen, Matt Ryan's a couple years removed from from an MVP season. So, and they basically gone and got every washed up first round pick available in Atlanta. So I'm just fascinated by what you guys are getting ready to cover all season long in the NFC South.
Yeah, it's a good point. Todd Gurley coming from the Rams back to Georgia. Yeah, Vince saw him much of the time with Georgia and Tennessee in that rivalry, and Gurley now a Falcon, if a lot of people don't realize that, back there in Atlanta. So it'll be fascinating in that division. And by the way, the Buccaneer first game is supposed to be in New Orleans, all things being equal, against the Saints and Drew Brees, and then a Sunday night game later in the year with the Saints as well as part of the division alignment. So let's see what happens with the NFL. Couple of more moments on the roundtable, on the video roundtable here. It's part of Three Dog Thursday. You're hearing the voices of Chris Plank and Vince Ferrara with us on the audio podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find the podcast, through our friends at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network and their slew of shows, their website. However you're hearing us, come find the video podcast. One more subject to cover, and that's the NBA. Brother Plank is in Oklahoma, where the Oklahoma City Thunder are playing currently in the resumption of the NBA season. So we were talking earlier about them on the podcast before you came on. What about the Thunder? Because we're taking a look at them on the video right now, getting ready to play a couple of significant games on Wednesday, actually, of this week. The Thunder are playing against the Memphis Grizzlies. Big game for both. We talked about that earlier. We don't know that result right now as we're taping on Three Dog Thursday. But the Thunder follow that up with a couple of very winnable games, guys. Actually, the Thunder, playing the Lakers, I believe it is. Yeah, the Thunder playing the Lakers on Wednesday. I got ahead of myself. And then on Friday, the Grizzlies, and then on the weekend against the Wizards. Thunder currently in about the 6th spot, Chris Plank. What do we make of how they're doing so far and their playoff chances?
Well, it's interesting because we are a very spoiled city as far as the Thunder are concerned. They come to town and suddenly they have this awful first season and then they never look back. They've been right. Oklahoma City Thunder fan has been born on third base, to be honest with you. But with all that said, with all that laid out, this is – I was trying to pull up the standings. This is a fascinating race in the NBA's Western Conference between about 3 and 6 because, you look at the Thunder right now, they're only 2.5 games out of that 3 seed. Now, again, 2.5 games with what are we at, like 6 to go?
5 to play, 5 or 6 to play, right.
Not good, but still the possibility. So you're looking at a team right now who's only a half game out of 4. It's been amazing that we're even in this position, guys, because this team was supposed to be Team Tank whenever they lost Russell Westbrook, whenever he got traded and Paul George went to the Clippers, and they've got first-round picks for like 20 years. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been better than expected. And, really the key here is Chris Paul has been the old Chris Paul, and not like the old guy, like the old Chris Paul. So I think they've got as good of a chance as anyone to get out of the first round. But it's been fun because I think everyone was ready to tap out on them this year, and they've really put together a nice season, TJ. They've been a fun young team to follow.
So we'll keep an eye on the Thunder. Vince Ferrara, you watching the hoops here? I mean, there's a big battle for the 8th spot in the West, and it may end up even being a play-in situation for the 8 and the 9 team before it's over. I don't know if you have allegiance. I can't remember to the Orlando Magic, who are actually breathing and alive in the playoffs, Vince, or if that's been stamped out from all their years of losing as well for you. What about the NBA? You're watching a little bit of this?
Love it. I've been watching almost all of it, and it's been great because just like with the NHL, it's on our TV during the day. And we have options now, especially when you have baseball, hockey, and NBA all on weekdays. I mean, it is a really nice feeling right now, and one that I'm not taking for granted since we went so long without sports. But I love it. The NBA has been so successful, like the NHL, in terms of the bubble and not having issues with COVID within that. And I like the quality of play. It hasn't been perfect, but there's not quite as much complaining to officials. The conversations are there's more audio there where you hear them more. So I think some players are more reluctant to get out there and verbally address the officials. So that's been good. And just a quick thing on the Thunder. I think the key there is to make sure that they're a 6 seed or better, because if you end up in that 7 spot, then you get the Clippers in the first round, and that makes it much more difficult. So if they stay in that middle range, 3 to 6, I think they should get through the first round. Been so impressed with what Chris Paul's been able to do to galvanize and keep that team together when it looked like Chris said, that they were going to tank this year.
He's been a fantastic player for the better part of about a decade. At right around 6 feet tall. So it's tremendous to watch him play. Billy Donovan, obviously still there, has been named co-coach of the year earlier this week. We'll see what the Thunder can do with those remaining games. We know what these guys can do, and I promised you we would get this done and get it done quickly, and they have helped out. Find Chris Plank again on social media at Plank Show on Twitter. Hear him out of Norman, Oklahoma, and his daily 5-day-a-week show in Oklahoma. Also hear him, thank God, on the Oklahoma Sooners broadcast. And it looks like we are going to get some college football to hear Chris on those. And hear him one more place on with Arnie Spanier, making sure that Arnie keeps it in the straight and narrow. Sunday nights nationally, Fox Sports Radio and the iHeart Radio app. Chris, thank you. I appreciate you hopping on board here, brother.
Thank you, guys, and I'm sorry I was running late. Craziness in trying to make sure we get a Big 12 schedule.
The man is in the middle of a move, and he's even joining us too. Yeah, we don't see all the cardboard boxes.
My floor. Look, that's the bag.
That's the close.
Wow.
Okay, the boxes are around. That's good. That's a good pan. Good work there with the camera. Vince Ferrara, thank you for being on with us here 5 days a week in Knoxville, Tennessee on the Sports Animal. Follow him at Vince Sports. Always a treat to have you, my friend.
Yeah, great to talk to you. And if you go to our website, 991thesportsanimal.com, just go to the blog section. I have a blog on those 2 models to add the 9th and 10th game for the SEC. They haven't announced that part of it. Took a deeper dive into those scenarios, and maybe people will enjoy checking out either the crossover or the strength of schedule. So take a look at that in the blog section on our website and have fun with it.
A fantastic plug there. And again, if I didn't say it, follow him at Vince Sports. My thanks also to Brian Edwards on earlier in the podcast. Subscribe via Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast. Find the YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and check out our video roundtable every week. For now, we are done. Enjoy the games all this weekend, whether it's the NBA, whether it's Major League Baseball, the PGA Championship. We got a golf major this weekend. Chris, a big NASCAR guy. We couldn't even cover that on the roundtable. We got all the sports back, and we're happy about it. Thank you for being with us on 3 Dog Thursday. Bye.